We just wait for 1 minute and people will be joining simultaneously and then we can start.
Patel, I think we should start. It's 3:01.
Yeah, sure. Good afternoon, all. Welcome back to the day 2 of Colloquium organized by Business Cluster of IIM Visakhapatnam. I am Patel, Business Secretary. Once again, welcome you all to be a part of this wonderful day. Thank you for joining us. Colloquium is a series of panel discussion and keynote session and a various national level competitions organized by Business Cluster of IIM Visakhapatnam. The objective of Colloquium is to bring industry experts and students on a platform to facilitate learning and enrich students' knowledge. On behalf of IIM Visakhapatnam, now I formally welcome to our esteemed panel member, moderator for the event, Alok Kumar, Assistant Professor of IIM Visakhapatnam, faculty member and alumni of IIM Visakhapatnam. Last but not least, student community of IIM Visakhapatnam who have came to join us for today this mega event. This panel discussion is on the topic of reimagining and reconstructing supply chain in new era. With us, we have Aniruddha Srivastava, Abhay Srivastava, Ramkesh Jangra, Ashish Tripathi as a esteemed panelist, and Abhinav Sinha as a moderator. Now, I would like to give this podium to Harshit for the further proceeding for the event. Over to you, Harshit.
Thank you, Patel. Once again, a very good afternoon to one and all present here. I welcome you all on behalf of Operations Club as a part of Business Cluster of IIM Visakhapatnam to the second panel discussion of the second day of Colloquium 2021. We have with us 5 eminent leaders from operations domain to discuss upon reimagining and strategizing supply chain in the new era. We are also joined with Professor Alok Kumar for the welcome note. Professor Alok is skilled in supply chain optimization, analytical skills, operations management, and production management. He has a strong educational background with a PhD focused in operations management from IIT Roorkee and MTech from IIT Varanasi. He has published work in top peer-reviewed journals such as PR Part A, Transport Policy, Journal of Cleaner Production, and has presented work in international conferences such as Production and Management Society, Euro, Society of Operations Management, and GloGift Society. I now hand over to Professor Alok Kumar for the welcome note.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Harshit and Sohail, for inviting me to just initiate and just give a pitch and tone to the discussion, which is much beneficial to the operations club students and at a larger scale to the other interdisciplinary students who belong to the marketing, finance, and the other disciplines. So when I look at this particular topic, the reimaging and re-strategizing the supply chain system, because we are very lucky and fortunately we are just passes this COVID time, and again we are looking for a normal business. So that means now we are not talking about the new normal. That means most of the things under the normal situations. So why the need of this reimagination and the restructuring, re-strategizing, revamping, resilience, or any, you can include the number of R. But my concern is related to this, and even the government of India is also set a goal on 12th May 2020, the Honorable PM Narendra Modi ji, with a vision of Atmanirbhar Bharat. So if you look at to the Atmanirbhar Bharat, it is nothing but it's talking about the 5 important dimensions. If you start from the economy, infrastructure, system, then demand. If you look at to the 4th important point, that is the demand. Because all the operation people, whether they are working with the industry, academia, and any operation club, the demand is very, very the key point for us. And the last is nothing but that is the demographic. That means how you are going to connect these 5 different points in the national boundaries as well as to the international boundaries to extend the legs of our supply chain systems. So that means, again, if you look at how we are expanding our business to the global platform, even on the national or the regional, we need a very, very robust and very, very clear guidelines, which is talking about the imagination, how you can start your business. So we are very lucky. We are having the very stalwarts of the industry. They are practicing the real imagination and strategies for formulating the supply chain to support the coming business as well as the current business. So that means, so this particular discussion is more beneficial to this operation management club. And the last, if you look at to the complete supply chain system, now the complete supply chain system is transformed into a large system. So the large is here is LARG. So if you look at to the previous production and operation systems, they're talking about the lean manufacturing, lean supply chain, right? Then it transformed into the agile. But this COVID gives me a new dimension, which is very prominent and very important to sustain in near future. That is the resilience. And the last G is nothing but how we can support to our environment with the global practices, with the transportation, and that like if you look at to the current time, CO2 26 is going on. So everybody is talking about how we can sustain over a longer period. So that means the discussion can be considered as this large framework, which is talking about the lean, agile, green, resilient, and the green system of the supply chain. Agility is nothing but because the people now they are working with the digital transportation, digital supply chain, digital infrastructure, or you can say that the industry 4.0 driven supply chain system. There's no doubt we can say that the supply chain 4.0, but if you look at this, the 4.0, again, we can looking for the star model. So again, this star is nothing but it's talking about the scalability, then the transparency or the traceability. Because when we're transporting the goods from one point to other point, it should be visible to all the players. That will be increase the trust among the players, the opportunities for the future collaboration, and finally, it gives a real value chain to the supply chain system. And third, again, the agility. And the fourth one, like previously we are talking about the responsiveness, but now that R is transformed into the resilience. So this is star model is nothing but how we can scale up the supply chain system, how we can make the transparency, traceability into the supply chain system through the digital platforms or the modern innovations. And the third one is the agility, and finally the responsiveness now converted into the resilient system. So that means I welcome on the behalf of IIM Visakhapatnam and this operations club, all the panelists to this particular session, and I think it is very beneficial as well as very practical learning oriented to the students. So welcome all, Anirudh ji, Abhay ji, Ashish ji, Ramkesh Janga ji, and Abhinav Sinha ji.
Thank you so much, sir, for the insightful note. Now, I would like to introduce you all to each of our esteemed panel. First, we have with us Mr. Anirudh Srivastav. He is the head of Demand and Supply Planning at Mahindra & Mahindra Limited. Close to 2 decades of experience in the industry, he is highly qualified for the industry certified supply chain management, operations engineering best practices, and management science applications to distribution, service, and manufacturing business. It's an honor to have you, sir. Then we have with us Mr. Abhay Srivastav. He is the president of operations at Mankind Pharma Limited. He has been a pharmaceutical professional since past 30 years and has a balanced experience between sterile and non-sterile manufacturing in both formulations and API. It's an honor to have you, sir. Then we also have with us Mr. Ramkesh Janga. He is the head of supply chain at Ericsson. He has been a supply chain management professional with around 2 decades of rich experience with top companies like HP, Nokia, and obviously Ericsson. It's an honor to have you, sir. Then we have with us Mr. Ashish Tripathi. He is General Management of Strategic Sourcing, Logistics and Agency at TOM. He is focused upon source-to-consume process, last-mile delivery, business controlling, and hub operations. And he brings expertise in digitalization, strategic sourcing, and cost optimization and spend management. Thank you, sir, for joining us. And finally, we have with us Mr. Abhinav Sinha. He will also be the moderator for the discussion today. He is the head of control tower and supply operations for India, Africa, and Middle East at Michelin. He brings in diverse experience, having worked in various industries, including FMCG, FMCD, automotive, foods, and personal care. He is highly skilled in planning logistics and supply chain transformation. I thank all of them for taking out the crucial time for us, and I'm sure that this will allow all of us to have a holistic view around the topic of discussion. Now, I request Mr. Sinha to kindly take over the proceedings.
So first of all, would like to congratulate the whole team. You are organizing a very good event and selecting a very good topic. And I would also congratulate the team who is joining me. And I would say it's a very good team in terms of the balance coming from different industry for this specific topic. So we have people from automotive, we have people from technology, we have from pharma, and I think and also from shipping. I think these are the actual real worlds where the action is currently happening. And when we would be talking about the new era changes and all, I think these sectors would be quite relevant. So again, thanks for choosing a very good panel, I would say. So what I would do maybe to just start off the context is I'll take 3 to 4 minutes, very quick. So it's a 10 slider, but I'll just rush through it to create just a vision, a drishyam about how the supply chain has evolved so far and what were the key innovations that has stood the test of time. And it would start maybe right from, I would say 1800s and till today. So just let me know if it is visible right now.
Yes, it's visible.
It is visible. Yeah.
Okay. So the top one, 1800s, time and motion study. We all know about how to balance the different resources. It's relevant even today, and it's one of the topmost theory which creates a lot of impact in everyday operations, I would say. So I'll be just rushing through the slides, not taking much of the time. The EOQ concept, we all know about inventory optimization. What should be the current inventory ordering that should be done so as to balance that overall cost, including holding, transaction, all sorts of cost, and then have a look at what is the most optimized order quantity, quite very important and relevant still today. Ford assembly line, again, something that transformed the whole production system. So from a workstation related to a movement into a conveyor belt, the type of efficiency and the productivity that it brought about, it was transformational. Multiple times, I would say it was not a percentage increase. It was more about multiples of increase in terms of productivity, quite an important thing. Ocean shipping container, this is my favorite one. And if you look at the pictures, so just imagine if the container sizes were not quite standardized, could these stacking and the type of loadability that we are seeing, was it ever possible? So quite an, again, thing which is quite relevant. The universal product code, any product that you buy, FMCG or any product, FMCD, automotive, go into any sector, you would see this universal product code. So it is all about the concept which is quite relevant, introduced in 1970s, 50 years from now, still it is there. The distribution requirement planning, just imagine if the factory which we're producing were just to send across the products to you very directly without having a proper network. So this is about whole network and then the network planning linked to that. The whole flow, this might look very intuitive right now, but it was not, and it is more of a supply chain science, still very much relevant today. FedEx tracking system. So over here, what I would say, it's not about technology. It is about the technology is changing. At times, it would have been a barcode. At times, it would be GPS. It can be RFID. Those would be changing. But the concept behind that, the most important was the unique identification of the shipment. That's something relevant even today. If you're buying Amazon, Flipkart, anywhere, it is quite relevant, and it is something that has gone through the test of time, 40 years plus, still quite relevant. Continuous replenishment system, again, very much effective, still relevant, got introduced in 1988. So it is more about having creation of a pull-based system rather than a push-based system. Again, much of a concept, quite very much relevant. Toyota production system, it is all about creating just in time. So you can say just, it's like elimination of waste and then improving continuously. These two are the keywords for the Toyota production system. It is again quite relevant in all the industries across test of time, again, still there. So what next? So this would be the topic of the whole discussion about how do we reimagine and how does the whole restructure work around and the new era. Three keywords. And then what would be very important is to just look about the last 8 or 9 slides and think about what were the important things that has to be captured so that those were proven innovations. So I would carry two words. One was the optimization, second is the visibility. So anything which creates optimization, anything that enhances visibility would be key to success of any new innovation that has to go through the test of time and then define the whole presence in the new era. So that would be the background that I would be setting up. And from there, as you would know, I would also set up the context in terms of just once again, give me a second, please. Yeah. So from there, as you would know, at this point in time, we are in a VUCA world. So when I say VUCA, it is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. So my first question to the panel, and I would go one by one to each of the panelists to just start with that. In this kind of situation that today we are, what is the type of innovation that you see that is either happening or is due to happen that will create a full ecosystem which stays in the new era? So if I take the opportunity, maybe I start from my screen. I see Abhay on the left and the first one. So Abhay, over to you. Yeah.
Thank you, Abhinav, and thank you, Professor Alok, setting the context very right. And I also thanks IM to invite me on this platform. And to me, can you just hold for a second? I'm having some problem with my. Are you able to hear me now? I'm sorry.
Yeah, perfectly fine.
Yeah,
Perfectly
okay.
fine.
Thank you so much. So, I'm the one of the legacy person, I would say. So I've got an experience of nearly 31 years in my career. I started when there was no computers, and the company never used to worry about the environment. The government used to control a lot. The government used to like do all kind of nuisance. Inspector Raj was there. And at that time, we used to hear a lot that in future, the supply chain is going to be that government will be very friendly. We have to take care of our planet, no slavery. So such thing was like, we used to like sometime laugh or sometime like we're quite amused, sometime where like, is it true, right? So, but in 30 years, what I've seen that whatsoever we were like discussing in the colleges and we were discussing in a lot of seminars were true. And so is right now as well. And I'm very thankful to the COVID for making this realized to the community as well. So in supply chain, I think there will be like 4 different buckets. I would be like talking that this is going to happen and this is happening right now. So first of all, looking at the challenges like COVID, or there were times where there were like financial crisis and there will be like, you will be out with fossil fuel very soon. So definitely there will be a lot of disruptions will happen in supply chain, correct? So there is definitely a change in the vision of the company. The company are like visionary, they are changing, they want to be like more sustainable. They are slowly shifting from, as Professor Alok rightly pointed, the company are like slowly shifting from lean to being fit. Not only agile or resilient, they want to be fit because they want to be like, they should have money to do. They should be like sustainable. Resilience, yes. Agile, yes. But now they want to be like fit. They want to like slowly move from being efficient to be effective. So they are like, right now the companies are like trying to balance, or how they want to balance their efficiency with being effective. So that is a visionary discussion which is currently happening in the industry. And the third thing is that they are like discussing whether to be cost sensitive or whether to be risk sensitive. And this discussion has fastened during the COVID, when like there was, everything was stopped, everybody was sitting home, many people lost their jobs, factories were shut down, there were no logistic happening. So nobody, like I said, that I am a legacy person and I used to like get amused whether this is going to happen. But thanks to COVID, to make us realize that someday this is going to happen, there will be no fossil fuel left and all the factories will be closed, everything will be closed. So it's a good insight. I think the God is giving, please sit and think about it. And the good companies have started talking about it. So there is a change in the vision. I would also say that there is a change in the business process as well. In business process, earlier we used to like set, there was a planning department, there was a marketing department, so everybody were working in their silos, so the supply chain was linear. And then suddenly this crisis came and everybody was sitting on the same table and discussing how to help. So the supply chain is like now slowly becoming circular or matrix rather than being linear, working in silos. So this is change in the business process. People have like been doing BCP, that is the business continuity program, as a formality, but COVID has forced them to sit and use good mathematical and statistical tools like FMEA in their business process, so that they know where to focus a lot. Then there is a shift, as some of the panelists also said, that the visibility or the transparency from end to end is now a mandate requirement. People are not knowing who is our vendor and vendor's vendor and vendor's vendor. But now a thought process is coming that if there is any disruption, you, like in army, they say that no man should be left behind the lines. And a similar thought process is slowly coming. And a lot of clarity in the first mile of the supply chain and a lot of transparency on the last mile of the logistic is now becoming slowly paramount. People are slowly like changing their business process from going directly to like customers. Even say I come from a pharma background, and pharma is highly regulated, that you cannot, nobody can open shop and start selling medicine. You need to have chemists, you need to have trained people, you need to have a prescription to buy a medicine. But a trial has been started that there are different portal, like 1mg kind of a portal, that slowly they will pop up and the company will directly approach the customer. So B2C model is like slowly cropping up. So this is something the companies are changing. Now, how the governments are changing. The governments from Inspector Raj are now becoming the facilitator. They are giving lot of PLI kind of scheme where you invest money, you slowly become slowly you reduce your dependency from Chinese companies. So they are giving a lot of incentives. So they are now helping. They are also creating a lot of reducing a lot of Inspector Raj kind of a thing. They are reducing a lot of regulatory to facilitate the industry survive and bring a technology, start manufacturing the product which are been like currently imported. So my friend, there will be, once there will be in 2030s or 40s, one interesting thing happen. This globalization will slowly start becoming localization, to be very honest. The country will become a lot of protectionist, because the fossil fuel will out, and the remaining fossil fuel will force the company to be like not importing anything or something like that. They are also like they are going to, which is not happened yet, but they are going to make a portal that you are able to see that your vendor, your sub vendors, what are their financial status, how healthy they are, and are they compliant, not compliant, so that you choose your partner very wisely. And then there is a 4 bucket, which is like the technology bucket. So a lot of digitalization and digitization is happening, lot of automation is happening, things are becoming, so there is a lot of what I would say, in the both end of the chain, there is ambiguity, the visibility is very poor. So people are using like different AI kind of a thing, chatbots, to bring more visibility, more predictability on the customer, because they are also changing, their behavior is changing very fast. And also bringing the visibility by using technology like IoT, RFID kind of thing, where you have got a visibility on the last mile. And yes, industry is slowly moving towards 4.0, and I think there are many versions to come. But it is right time to set and make a roadmap kind of a thing. So there are 4 buckets which are happening very fast, and thanks to COVID, which is making it very fast. So there's a definitely change in shift in paradigm in the vision of the company. The business processes are very fastly changing. The government is also facilitating and also like helping, because they also know such kind of disruptions are now normal or new normal. And technology. So currently the companies are setting, they are making a proper roadmap that they adopt the right technology, which is very suitable to their business and their business processes, that they remain in business in time to come. So over to you, Abhinav. Hope I have.
Thank you. Thanks, Abhay, for the insights. And maybe I'll next move to Anirudh. So Anirudh, while you take the lead question on in terms of the innovations that can be key in restructure, or rather that would be key for the future of the supply chain, it would be good maybe at some point in time if you can also cover the current semiconductor prices and the type of reasons and the impacts and what sort of role this particular innovation that can play, which would be just maybe covering just a little bit of context could be giving a good view to the students for sure.
Okay. Thank you, Abhinav. I think Abhay has pretty much covered the different areas where I believe you would see a lot of change happening, and you would see change happening for the right reasons as well, right? So let me try and put this discussion in context of the students who are attending this session. So if you are in this field of operations management, I just want to make that connect, that while we speak as we experience what happens in the industry, I feel it's paramount that you guys understand the fundamentals of what supply chain is, right? And you can name it whatever. It used to be supply chain management. Back when I was in school, it used to be industrial engineering. Even before that, it used to be production engineering. So these tools, techniques have been there for years, and only the application and scope of those things have changed. So I would really encourage you that while you listen to Professor Alok, right, he talks about optimization, he talks about tools. I think Abhinav also started with different things that have evolved. The quantitative nature of this field is extremely important. So while everything here is about doing business and meeting numbers and sales and cost and targets, don't forget that this field is an inherent field where trade-offs are involved. Okay, when trade-offs are involved, there are multiple functions involved. There are multiple things which you have to consider, and the value that you students add when you go into the workforce is you bring a structured thinking process to the whole thing. You have the quantitative skills, you have the background. So listen to those things. I mean, the inventory models which you're talking about, the demand forecasting models you're talking about, the application and extension of these things into artificial intelligence and machine learning. All these things are basically fundamentally at the core of it. They are probability, they are statistics, mathematics, and optimization, right? So these are fundamental skills. Keep them with you, okay? Because at the end of the day, you will open your books 10 years from today, and you will say, wow, this is how it's happening in the industry, and this is how I learned it. So the expectation is that somebody like you would use that reference and framework, and through that lens of what it actually needs to be, you should be able to evaluate what is wrong in the business. When I talk about supply chain management, there are basically three things, right? You have demand, you have supply, and then you have the facilities in between which add value by converting the supply into a product that somebody needs. So you have to look at innovation in all aspects, right? So then there is first is demand. Now demand is typically influenced by having something that somebody wants, right? And there are multiple ways to do it. Marketing and sales functions take lead, but understand that despite having demand, which is happening in the automotive industry today, and Abhinav, I lead into that discussion, you will still see that we have a huge demand, but guess what? We don't have the parts to make the and meet the demand, right? So it's not just enough to be able to predict demand and say, well, I've had a successful product, now I'm going to sell it. Eventually, you have to make something and deliver to the end customer, right? That's where supply comes in. Even if you're able to secure your supply, you have to convert the supplies of materials into something, and you have to do it in quick enough time that a customer expects you to do. So it's no longer okay to make the least expensive car. If you walk into automotive or aerospace or any industry today, if you can get me what I need, I'm willing to pay for it, right? So the whole innovation used to be basically in what? Well, how can I make something in the quickest and the least cost manner, right? That is no longer the incentive. In my opinion, innovation is not going to happen there. Now you're talking about the supply disruptions which are out there. If you don't have material to make what you need, guess what? You can have the best demand prediction capabilities you want. You can have the best manufacturing facilities, but guess what? You don't have enough stuff to make what you need. Okay, so this is now come into focus, and this should have always been in the focus. It is just that now somebody realizes, guess what? I have enough demand. I don't have supply to do it. So to me, when you look at the semiconductor shortage, okay, the discussion and context which I want to put this in, what happened in COVID? Well, everybody got locked in their houses, and then we realized that, well, for me to function, I need my kids need laptops, right? Our family needs more devices. Now I'm going to start ordering all these things so that I can anticipate and do my work from home, right? Entertainment systems went up. People wanted televisions. People wanted mobile handsets. They wanted laptop computers and tablets. Guess what? The vehicle that you use today, and which used to be a traditional sheet metal car, which used to be based on stamping and assembly of major components, has become a highly sophisticated technology product. It's no longer just a vehicle which is made of sheet metal doors and trims, right? It has all the technology that is currently being used in your phones, in your laptops, and in everything that you use to connect to the outside world. So when the demand spiked, guess what? There are only a few manufacturers on the world who invest in manufacturing semiconductors, right? So you have one in Texas and in the US, you have some in Europe, and then you have some in Taiwan and in Asia, right? When that demand picked up, guess what? The number of tablets and laptops which sell far exceed the number of vehicles that people consume. So obviously, if I'm a supplier and I'm making these semiconductors, if somebody is willing to give me such a high volume, I'm going to first commit my demand to them. So automotive folks immediately realized that, guess what? I cannot sell this car until I have these chips inside my vehicles. From navigation systems to sound systems to engine control systems, everything is now technology driven. You don't just buy a car because it looks nice and it gives you mileage. Those days are gone. Okay, it has fundamentally shifted the industry. People want their cars to be connected. They want to engage with the cars. They want Siri to talk to them. They want Alexa to talk to them. They want people to find all sorts of information. Everything. The car has become an extension of you. Okay. So in my opinion, when that demand went up, automotive industry was not ready. They did not anticipate that this is something that's going to happen. That demand will continue to sustain, but supplies will go out. So if you see today, waiting times for some of the best-selling models in the automotive industry happens to be in beyond 12 months, right? In our company's example, the Mahindra Thar, the XUV 700, and in Tata's example, I'm just giving you the Harrier. All these models, or the Safari for that sake, they have at least an 8 to 10 months lead time. I mean, imagine a customer is willing to wait for a car for 10 months. I mean, if I was a businessman and I wanted to put my time, money, and resources, I would try and make as many cars as possible and dispatch it. Guess what? Even if I double my production capacity today, we do not have the supply chain aligned to do it. So the focus has shifted in that direction. So the innovation has to come. Well, why did I want this chip to be manufactured outside? Well, guess what? Your supply chain is all over the world, right? You're importing parts, you're making parts. So one shift or the innovation that needs to happen is we need to invest now in technology to make these things at home. Things have to be made closer to you. You should have better control of your supply, because at the end of the day, you can make the best product. If you cannot make it and deliver it as per the customer's expectations, you will lose the revenue and you will lose market share. And that's not what you want to do, because your focus cannot just be cost. It's about delivery also. And you have to ensure that things get delivered on time. And that's where your skill set comes in, right? As future leaders going into supply chain, you will be tested to deliver the product not just at the least cost, but also in the quickest time, and also with all the different features you need. So consumers are becoming more and more sensitive, and you will have to do and deliver on multiple fronts. So innovation has to come by applying these tools, techniques. Otherwise, it's not possible. You just can't set up a supply chain and say, well, I'll make something today and I'm going to deliver tomorrow. It takes years of effort and time. So that's my take on that, Abhinav. Hopefully, I was able to give some background.
Very much, very much.
Also relate to the students here.
Quite insightful. And I think the students could very easily connect with the language and the examples that you made. Thanks for that. Ashish, I'll come to you maybe after Ramkesh rather. So because you are in midst of actually bridging the demand supply gap at a lot of points. Maybe Ramkesh, if you would, while you are answering the lead question in terms of the key innovations that can be critical, if you can touch upon one point, especially which Anirudh also just touched upon at certain moment, that with the challenges that we are looking at in terms of the sourcing, shipping, and everything, do you also see any key restructuring happening in the vendor base or the manufacturing base of the different industries specific to you as well? How does it look like to you also? If you can just maybe cover while you would be answering the lead question. Over to you, Ramkesh.
Yeah, thanks, Abhinav, and I agree with Anirudh and Abhay also, and thanks to Alok and IIM team for organizing such a wonderful session. Coming to the questions, see, the change is permanent, and there will be various reasons will come into market which will force business to change their entire alignment and restructure as per the time and demand of the hours. There are various reasons. One reason is COVID, and if you talk about few years back, then it may be very tough competition, it may be some technological innovation. And now post COVID, there is geopolitics is come into picture at global level, which is impacting all businesses and the entire business of the world. The entire manufacturing sector, which was centralized, I would say, for the globe, now the world leader are talking to decentralize it. We in India do have more opportunity, and as Professor Alok mentioned, the government of India is also focusing on this opportunity, that let me encash this opportunity and make India alternate to China, which can deliver to the world as per the demand of the time. We need non-Chinese and quality products at a mass production scale level, and for which for that, as Professor Alok mentioned, Government of India has put up secretary level position in Ministry of Commerce, and he is the Secretary Commerce, Secretary Logistics. And another good point is the Government of India has hired direct from corporate at this at joint secretary level position. They are very focused, and the Road Transport Ministry is also uh, working at a very dynamic speed to develop the infra. Overall, I will say the country is having very bright future for logistics and supply chain, and change are definitely permanent. One small example, day before yesterday, I was having our team review. I'm part of Ericsson R&D team, and the R&D team asked me to elaborate on Incoterms, the valid Incoterms which are in practice for the global trade. So I was going through one by one: DAP, DAP, DAT, FCA, X warehouse, X factory, these terms. I hope our students are aware about these terms. And if they're not aware, in brief, for any global trade, there are various in, international commercial terms which are being used to transport material at cross-border level. One engineer says, is there any drum where we can pick up material from production belt, just like barbecue, quite hot and fresh? Then I laughed and I said, yes, when young people and young engineers are coming to supply chain, definitely they will do some innovative works and they will add value and they will design new things. So when there is change in demand, then there is change in supply also. The new breed or new blood is coming into a picture, whether it is sales, whether it is production, supply chain, consumer side, then they are changing entire atmosphere. And the demand is increasing worldwide. The quality of life is increasing for developed country, developing country, and more people or country are focusing on developing their nations. The demand is increasing of products. If demand is increasing, then of course the more and more resources and facilitation and quality of works will be required in supply chain as well. As far as Ericsson is concerned, Ericsson is a technology providing company, and now 5G is the talk of the town. And after a few months, there will be 6G come into picture, which will enable various IoT and other such tools which needed to use in supply chains, and that will replace or say uh, add more values to the human intelligence. Yes, Abhinav.
Yeah. Thanks, Ramkesh. I think the insights are pretty relevant. We'll come to you, Ashish. And Ashish, I think at this point in time, especially with the shipping industry in the type of turmoil that we are today. So, and one of the things that has always happened with innovations is that the challenges, whenever it is at the peak, innovations do happen. And we have seen that in history, say World War, all sorts of technological advances were made in that time. So at this point in time, I would say in past 100 of years, maybe, there was nothing at this scale in terms of challenges as it is being faced by the shipping industry now. So while you would be answering at a global level in terms of innovations that would be impacting the supply chain, anything that is specific that can happen in the area of shipping, it would be great, at least for the understanding of students as well. Yeah, over to you, Ashish.
Sure. Thanks, Abhinav, for the question. And thanks for the team at IIM Visakhapatnam, professors, students, to invite me. I'm the fellow panelist. Good afternoon to you all. It's always good to be part of such discussion. It is always both-way traffic. So there is an exchange of ideas. So always look forward for being on the other side of the table, so I can recollect those days as well, where it is, and that too on Sunday. So sometimes we try to, talk about what we do. And because since we do that every day, it becomes very evident for us as a supply chain experts in our specific domains. Also, I would like to take this opportunity to tell the students when they have this phase, because even if we would, from all the panelists, and I'm sure they would agree that we wish to sort of go back to the academics, it is very difficult. So please use this time very wisely when you have it, because probably this will be one of the last time you will be in the school. I hope you go back again when time permits, but use this very much to the best of potential which you could. And as say supply chain, it is a very vast field. Try to understand where do you fit in, what do you like, and where do you sort of the time. It is difficult, but that is your sort of a Dexter's laboratory right now, because once you're out in the corporate world, it will be very difficult ballgame altogether. So use that at the best of your potential to gain what you want to and where you want to be. So it's like taking a pause and then to projectile yourself. Now coming to the question which you mentioned, Abhinav, in terms of, I'll go back the points which you raised about visibility and optimization actually, and I'll present with my sets of challenges what it brings along. I know that being accused of inflated freight rates and whatnot, the shipping companies are minting money. But on the operational side, if I say so, it is a very difficult, and I think Abhay was mentioning on the similar line, say how important it is for an army to not leave a single life behind in the battlefield, right? The same is the challenge for us and a lot of other things. So to give you a real life sort of a forced innovation, I must say, we plan for unplanned for the ship operation or the ship movement. And what do I mean by that is we operate the vessels. Imagine a chota hathi waiting at the corner of a road, which can take your payload from any time. So on a bigger context is what sometimes the ship also operate. You have time charter, but you also operate on spot charter. It is a good in terms of the bottom line for the business, but what it brings the challenge to the supply chain, because you can't plan to where the vessel is heading, right? You can plan for where you will be, but when you don't know the port of call, you don't know how can you plan for that. And that was something which was a bigger challenge for us during the COVID, which we realized, because this was leading to unplanned deliveries, because we need to run the ships efficiently without getting them off when the probably all of us were locked inside our homes. The ships were still running. As you know, 80% of the world trade moves by the ships. So that never, the seafarers were not stopping there and say, we don't want to be at the ships. So salute to those guys. I have been ex-sailor myself, so I can imagine that the difficulties which they have gone through. But onto the business part of it, what we were facing is the quality issue in terms of the last minute request, whether it be your MRO, and I call a ship as a small scale industry. Each ship, so we have about 80 ships. So each ship is a small scale industry, I would say, in itself. So each ship will have their own requirement depending on the port which they are calling to. So what we could see that because of this uncertainty and not knowing the port it should be leading to, we had a quality issues, because it's a last minute request to fulfill whatever is basis the guideline. We have a marine guideline which defines the quality. So if I want to buy a pen, it will tell me what is the pen, but it will not define the quality. It will just give me the specification. So then you can play around as a supplier with that, right? But keeping the essence of time in mind, then we had to supply whatever the best possible. Also the escalated cost, because as we know, when we book our flights last minute, whether be it for Diwali or anywhere, the last minute is always expensive. So that was sort of hurting us in terms of doing the business. Of course, the money is flowing in or still flowing in, but then you don't want to commit foolish mistakes, right? And that is where what we did in-house is, with the help of AI, which is again a very fancy word. You hear it all the time. So we had an in-house business intelligence team. With the algorithm, what we did is we developed with the predictability or probability of good 80, 85, 90%, along with involving the various stakeholders internally, our sales, which is a chartering, which leases out the ship, that what is your feedback from the customers, where the ships will be heading to. So along with that, with our the past data, we could predict. And it is not that we will win everything, but we will be in a much better shape. So if I could predict in the next 60 or 70 days, vessel will be heading to Arabian Gulf, then I can plan, since we have, say, 7 warehouses globally, we can ship the goods there, wait there, we have much more time. We can probably ship it via sea again, have some lead time in hand, and then address that quality issues. So that way, I think we could increase and also use that opportunity. We call close to 650 ports globally. So of course, you can't be present at all these ports. There will be some agents representing you at these ports. And maybe you call it this year, you are not there in the next 3 or 4 years. But on that particular day, you need to do the job. So how do you sort of plan for that certain things? So with this opportunity, what we could see that we had much more cushion in terms of planning. And then, like I said, we couldn't win everything, but we were in a much better condition with this help of AI, which could predict that, okay, this vessel within this many days of window will be hitting Singapore. Okay, now what important is Singapore for me, because my lube oil with my contract, which I have with procurement, is cheapest as a key port in Singapore compared to, say, Houston, which is high off the roof. So I would avoid using Houston, whereas I will plan for Singapore. I will also plan my paints, chemical, lube oil. So the point what I'm trying to make is that with this help of AI, we could see that though it was sort of a force-fed innovation, like I said, but we could save a lot of cost and a real saving. Because again, as a procurement professional, I must say that must be accused of talking about savings which are not there on the bottom line most of the time, right? So that was a real saving, and at the same time ensuring that the vessels are not stopped. The vessels are moving as it should be. Because if you remember, now the things have settled quite well, But there was a time where even for us to even get down for a grocery was a big challenge, right? And in that time, the vessels were moving, the goods were flowing in. There were, of course, some off-shelf of item, but considering the difficult time we were in, it was a stellar effort from the people on board the ships. So that has helped in terms of visibility a lot for us, and that we share it across with our agents, with our suppliers, so that we can plan for all those spares, all those MRO items, all those lube oils and everything well in advance, keeping in mind again the same semiconductor story. We are facing the same thing, same for the paints, for all the metals, piping, fittings, and everything, because suddenly there is a splurge of demand all across, right? So how can you again plan for unplanned? And that has, in a way, with the help of AI, has helped to have as much as possibility in terms of see through across the visibility right from the start of planning to delivering to the vessel, which is the last mile of our supply chain.
Thanks, Ashish. I think at this point in time, hearing from shipping professionals is pretty interesting. All the use cases about the risk mitigation, visibility, everything is coming out there. So maybe I'll ask certain quick feedbacks. I'll set up certain questions so that we get a feel about how the future supply chain structure can look like very quickly. You got a point, Anirudh?
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly speak. Whatever Ashish has just said, right? He's giving you at a fundamental level what he's calling artificial intelligence. As a student, you need to know it's an optimization problem that he's talking about. Okay, you are required to make that linkage. That what is this algorithm actually doing for me, right? So he said, I'm trying to predict demand. I have a capacity of 80 ships. I have to reach X amount of ports and touch so many warehouses from where I have to do pickups and load these containers onto my vessels and move them in the shortest time possible, right? So it is an optimization problem. So when Professor Alok's expertise is an optimization, you should dig his brains, okay? What exactly is this thing doing? It's an optimization problem. I have to touch 100 ports given 80 ships. So if you remember, and I don't know how many of you have had background in that, it's a linear programming problem, and it could become a non-linear programming problem as well, right? So it is something that is fundamentally there for you to learn. So do not just take it what something is doing. It's not a black box. It's actually being done and executed by professionals like you only. And there is a sound fundamental basis of why these tools work, because they quantify the uncertainty and they give you multiple scenarios to plan. And that is what business does. But understand that scenarios don't just happen. Somebody has to set up the model for it to give you those scenarios. It asks you for inputs, but then it computes and gives you X amount of routes. Then it's up to people like Ashish to choose which routes do I take and which routes do I don't take. Because if I don't take this is a trade-off. And so I just wanted to make that point relevant,
Thanks,
that students need to realize that this is an optimization problem to solve.
Yeah, and just to make it in simple words, it is about correlating the different inputs that you have at certain point in time, any inputs, and then bring about an output that what can be the influence out of these seemingly unrelated factors as well at times. Say, for example, if there is a rain somewhere or if the temperature rises, what can be the impact on the freight rate? So it can seem very unrelated, but at times artificial intelligence is what that does the work to give a view about that. And thanks, Anirudh, for highlighting that point and importance of staying theoretical while you are in B school as well. So that's pretty important. Yeah. So I was maybe just coming back to the structure point. So with whatever that we have seen, if we were just to talk about few top pointers, so I would be running very quickly on those points. So do you expect the length of supply chain in days to come to shorten, or will people still be chasing the efficiency that they got with the centralized operations? So maybe we can go in the same order as we started. Abhay, over to you. You are on mute, Abhay.
Yeah, sorry. So I think it will get shortened, to be very honest, looking at the current practices, because agility is something which people might be needing. So the time period will shorten. That's for sure.
Yeah. How about you, Anirudh? How do you feel on that?
Well, see, to me, supply chains keep configuring and they keep reconfiguring themselves, right? So there was a time when there was a focus on cost, right? When you have a focus on cost, it doesn't matter what distances you have to commute and what uncertainties you have. Your objective is to focus on cost. So guess what? If somebody makes something cheaper, 100,000 miles from 10,000 miles from here, I'm going to take that, I'm going to bring it in, and I'm going to distribute that. A lot of industries still do it. But if you ask me, people like us get paid to anticipate such failures, okay? And we should have, if not for COVID, at least there should have been some planning, which Abhay also mentioned. You have to anticipate these things. That's what you get paid for. It's not like this thing just happened and I was not prepared. The reason why people like us get paid is because you have to prepare for these eventualities. So in my opinion, lead times will shorten because that's the current flavor of the month. But at the end of the day, when your margins start to squeeze, there will be an opportunity for you to do both. And I think that's where the intent is. You will have to be local. You have to have facilities close to you, but they cannot be cost uncompetitive, because at some point that whole supply chain will again unwind, and you will find once the risks go away, container ships are available, suppliers are 100% running to capacity, you will again find people will go. So I think it depends on what product you make, what your customer is expecting, and the reality of this commodity prices and trading and all that stuff that influences the decisions across the world. So to me, I don't think I'm really convinced that people will make the decision. They are doing it because they have been forced to rethink. But supply chains keep evolving, in my opinion. They will come together. They will also unravel, and there'll be a mix of both.
Thanks, Anirudh. And Ramkesh, how about your views on the topic?
Very good questions. There are measurements to measure the tight turnaround time. And to summarize, there is a report called Logistics Performance Index. The report is released by World Bank after every 2 years, and which is giving a ranking to different nations. Now that list is being topped by Germany with a score of 4.2. Second country is Japan. We are scoring in LPI report 44. So now we are at 44. 4 years back, we were at 70. So we are sharply jumping, and the parameter to reduce the turnaround time or TAT is for supply chain per se. If I say, then it should be a less turnaround time in custom clearance and port management, infrastructure, road, rail, and ports, trace and tracking, and ease of international shipments, logistics services quality, and total turnaround time in every process. With this, entire industry, or say our country, need to work very hard to come up at global level. Now, as I said, we are at number 44 position with tough competition from our neighbors Indonesia and Vietnam, which are very young as compared to us. Vietnam is scoring at number 39 with 3.27 scale, and we are at 3.18, very tough competition. And Indonesia is at 46th position with 3.15. You can go with this data, you can see where we are and how much we need to work.
And Ashish, from your perspective, and especially from the shipping line capacity planning in long-term perspective, what's the take that the industry is taking? That will there be any substantial shift in terms of intercontinental movement, or will it be any different?
I will take it in two bits, actually, Abhinav. For no doubt, of course, that the lead times will shorten. That is, I think we go by history, and it is very much driven by the demand. So we want everything faster. If I look at it in terms of shipping as such, probably the new building rate, which we had, say, about a year and a half back, the same ship is costing 30% more. The shipyards are full. So the same, not just the vehicles are expensive with Anirudh, or Mahindra's making money, but it's also the shipyards minting on this ride, actually. So even the same ship, and there are certain sort of riding the wave on this as well. As an investor, I would have invested to put a vessel on the quay without getting it out on the sea. I sell it off. That's a different story. But that is for sure. How long will it sustain is the question. And if somebody could sort of predict that, probably would be a billionaire, because you can't time it, right? That is the biggest challenge which we have. I mean, now you can imagine even Domino's has reduced their delivery time. I was reading in the newspaper which they used to deliver. Or you can imagine getting a mithai from Calcutta if you have a tooth for a Bengali mithai, right? The same day. So that sort of changes which you see in and around. With the best part for specifically, if I talk about India, yes, I work very much with our teams globally. I think the manpower is one of the biggest strength for us, I would say. Yes, there is a lot of automation. There is a lot of machine learning. There is a lot of data, this and that. But at the end of the day, the human capital of advantage which we have, we will see that. And that will be very much, either when we have traveled overseas or state study, whichever way, we can see that part link missing there on a lot of basic things, which is at the click of your button from a smartphone now in India. And that is quite smart. So it is going to change for sure. Like I said, for shipping perspective, we are expecting that this race to continue, but it's not sustainable, if you ask me. I mean, it's not the right way this is going, if you ask me.
Okay. So maybe I'll touch upon another two quick points and we'll take the views. So in terms of digitalization and automation, what is the pace that the team feels at this point in time that it would be progressing? Obviously, the answer would be obviously yes, but what's the pace? Will it be transformational or will it be incremental? What are your views on that? So maybe we can start with Ashish, you this time. Yeah.
I was waiting. I'll get some breather now. Thanks, Abhinav. I was. I will say that it is in terms of automation. I take again very hands-on example of us. In terms of we want to focus on a lot of high volume, right? That is where you want to automate things. If you take my personal opinion. So I talk about again the P2P process. So on an average, if we do about close to 35,000 purchase orders a year, right now 4 years back, our auto match percentage in terms of invoice, of course, no paper involved, no hard copy of invoices, but close to only 7 to 8% of our invoices were auto matched. What it means that, of course, line to line item will match with your invoice to the PO, and then there will be no intervention in between in terms of approval. It is more or less like that you had your meal at the restaurant, so why you need to again approve that? You had your meal, you have to pay the bill. Simple as that. So that was the idea which we went back to the stakeholders and said that we want to scale that up, auto match percentage. And now what it does is, of course, we don't want to lose our people. We're very close to the team which we have, but then also need to question what value does it add. So now we are trading at a close of 67 to 70% of all our invoices are auto matched. So there is not a single intervention in terms of, so that is one sort of example which I said. So there are a lot of things, and especially on a big volume, robotics is something when you have defined your catalog, right? When you know that this is where you're going to buy from. Why can't a ship or anyone can order like a 7-year-old from Amazon from a ship, So I don't think that sort of future is very far. And then again, the demand will be sort of driving that.
Okay, and before I go to Ramkesh, maybe I can request to the students, if they have any question, they can put on the chat window and we'll try to take it up a little bit later. Okay. Yeah, over to you, Ramkesh. Yeah.
The speed of innovation or say new technology introduction is reducing. The earlier the development of one product or say one medicine, if I come to Abhay, then they were taking about 10 to 11 years, and now they are doing in 10 to 11 months. And so is the digitization or any technology implementation. As far as supply chain is concerned, in India, e-way bill are generated almost 100% digitalized. Toll charges are almost 100% digitalized. Vendor invoice and payments, money companies like us are totally digitalized. Scanning, inventory management in warehouses are digitalized. Now we are talking next level of IoT, and has increased, and turnaround time, of course, is reducing in implementing all these technologies. Yes, Abhinav.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks. Yeah, Anirudh, maybe over to you. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have to understand that technology acts as an enabler, right? It cannot supplant what already exists in the sense that what you're digitizing is basically a process that used to be executed by having people do it either manually or using transactions or papers or phone calls, right? So anything that is transactional in nature, which doesn't require, I would say, decision making. Okay, it's basically as both Ashish and Ramkesh said, these are things. I'm scanning my inventory. Is it accurate? I have to pay my bills, and if I have received, if I've received an invoice, do I need somebody to manually sit and check it and validate it? Can I do that? So I think all of that is basically removing the what should I say, the transactional nature of what a supply chain is. And trust me, a majority of supply chain transactions are transactional in nature, right? Those things I think will be the first candidates to optimize because it requires a lot of time, effort, and it's error prone. And in supply chain, any errors which you have will be very, very costly for you, whether it's about having inventory, which you think you have, and it happens today. I mean it's a very manual driven process. So I have brought in a certain part, I invoiced it. Obviously, the part should go out of stock, but the system says you have something in stock. When a customer order comes, you realize, well, I don't have that inventory in place. Why? Because it was a transactional error in posting the inventory. So all these things which are transactional in nature, digitization will take over and change it. But when it comes to human decision making, right? Your algorithms can give you scenarios. At the end of the day, your intellect and the ability to make decisions will never be automated. Okay, it can only give you a recommendation. It can only give you, I have scenario 1, 2, and 3. So what do you think you need to do? You need to be accountable for the outcomes of the decisions, and in that case, the human element will always stay. Everything else, in my opinion, which is transactional in nature, will be automated or digitized, if you would, whichever way you want to call it.
Yeah. Over to you, Abhay, your views on automation and digitization.
I think this is the COVID is something which has like expedited the thought process on digitalization. And what I feel is that uh, the level of digitalization will be in between like transformational and incremental. In some case, it will be totally transformed. It will totally transform the business, which are purely transaction, which are not so regulated, have got very less risk, financial or risk to their life. Such kind of business will go transformational. But incremental, I also agree with what Anirudh was saying, that there would be certain businesses where it will be incremental, where there are certain industry which are like highly regulated, like mine. So it is highly regulated. There are regulators which come and they want to see, because there is always a threat to their life. So in our cases, the some part of the business will be having an incremental kind of digitalization, and some part of the business like logistic will be totally will undergo transformation. Um, Likewise, even the aviation will have an incremental, because wherever there is a threat to the customer, so there will be an incremental, and where it is no threat or it is not so regulated, there will be a full transformation in the business.
Okay. Okay. So I'll maybe now jump off to a question. It's also coming from a chat window. So I thought that this could be the last question before we jump onto the questions from the student, but somehow the first question is also linked to that. So very good question. What I would maybe do is little bit of rephrase it. So with the different things that are happening in supply chain domain at this point in time, do you think it would be a good career for MBA students, especially like people from IIM Visakhapatnam, to look at it as a serious career opportunity and the type of benefit that it gives in terms of learning and everything? Yeah. Abhay, you are taking this question, so it's
So
you're on
I will
mute right
take
now.
this question. Yes,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I will take this question. Yeah. There's one shift which is currently happening and which has happened and people have realized during the COVID, the market had slowly become from buyers to sellers. When I talk about my case, that suddenly there was a COVID and their factories were like shutting, and I have to like literally go and buy the raw materials because we have got some approved vendors from where we can only buy our raw materials, and the raw materials were available. Say X was not working, Y was working, and Z was like selling at a very high rate, and it was totally a seller market, I would say. And right now, with the power crisis, and right now what is happening, a geopolitical situation which is happening with China, so every 2 hours there is a change in rate. So it is no longer like no longer like a buyer's market. So when it is a seller market, then what literally happens, and with due apology to the people who are from the other domain, the marketing guy is now coming to the operations guy or the supply chain guy. And when it is a buyer market, then literally we go to marketing and say that, so what is our demand? And then accordingly we plan. And looking at the situation which will arise, I see that the people who are in supply chain or different aspect of supply chain will have a greater career. So this is my very strong guts feeling, I would say.
Yeah, and it's an important question. So maybe I'll stay with this question with the rest of the panelists as well. Anirudh, your views on this. So will machine ever replace people in this domain? And does this domain still remain attractive for good talents?
So, see, my opinion, Abhinav, is always going to be biased. My background, my education has been in this line, right? So why? But the question is, you as people who start embarking on a career, you need to ask yourself. And I never was able to do it because I was, those times were different, right? When I was in my early 20s, your ability to the world was not so connected, right? You didn't have access to so many different facilities and tools and techniques. um, you have to decide what makes you tick, right? If you love interacting with people, you love solving problems, you're a people person, but you're also analytical in nature, right? Then this is the right field for you. In my opinion, if you are basically a one-dimensional individual, and I'll say with all due respect to everybody else who has different, functional orientations, if you like to be in the thick of things and you like to solve problems that kind of run across different functions, okay, there is no better profession and there is no better skill set to have, because you understand everything. You have information about demand, you understand what supply is, you understand manufacturing, you understand distribution, you understand accounts, finance. I mean, the entire thing is there in front of you. So to me, I would not give up my career to be in a different function. I think we are at the heart of it. And if you enjoy being and having those skill sets and being in the thick of things, then I would say it's a great career opportunity. And future is only going to get better for you.
Yeah. Ramkesh, your views, please, on this subject. I think you are on mute. Or maybe we'll come back. Ashish, if you can just take.
Sure. I think for certainly, I mean, of course, with the various domains, and since we come from this, so I think we should be able to give an insight as what probably from the future lens it looks like. For sure, I very much echo with Anirudh what he was saying about with the touch points internally, any organization. So sort of exposure in terms of knowing the value chain, what is a supply chain expert within your own company. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. I think Ramkesh just came back online. So Ramkesh will get back to you after Ashish completes.
Okay, yeah, sorry. So what I was saying is that with the touch points which you have internally within your own organization, and that sort of exposure.
Yeah,
that sort of exposure which it gives you is something different. And in terms of another way, if I look at from a CFO perspective, right, if the company is there to make money. So you are there for making money. So what is your return on capital invested is the first question if I look at the balance sheet, right, that way. So either I sell a lot. So if my depending on whatever is my ROCE, either I spend $10 and I make $1 maybe with whatever, I'm just giving a number, or I spend that $10 wisely so that I save money on or I optimize my cost. And that is where the supply chain comes into picture, right? So how do you spend smartly? How do you ensure that whatever you spend as a company is very much taken into account? And that is where whosoever is embarking on this career has no doubt, I can say, at least for a couple of decades which you be serving, I'm sure, or you want to start with your entrepreneur journey is a different thing, but it is an exciting career which you will be taking. So yeah, that is my take on that one, Abhinav.
Abhinav, I lost the connection at that time. If you can.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for coming back, Ramkesh. Yeah. Your views, please. Thank you.
Yeah. Can you rephrase the
Yeah,
question?
we can hear you now. Pretty fine. Yeah.
Can you rephrase the question?
Yeah. So it was more about how do you think the pace of digitalization and automation would be at this point in time with what we are seeing?
Of course, the speed will be more, and the new technology will be implemented as fast level, not only about industry itself, but because we are getting new and diversified brain, new young people in supply chains, like the young friends which are listening to us. They are from different backgrounds, new minds, and new ways. Definitely, there will be a fast speed.
Okay, so I'll go to the next question to you, Abhay. So I'll just point it out. So with the different cost elements that are increasing with the current scenario, do you think that the companies are fair to pass on the price increases? Or even maybe I'll just add up one point, are they even everyone capable to pass on the cost increase as well in terms of pricing? Yeah. You are
So
on.
here, yeah, I'm sorry. So here I will only talk about my the field from where I come. So I'm from the pharma, which is highly regulated, not regulated in terms of the technology, but also the prices are being highly regulated, right? So our prices are regulated by the government of India. There are 3 different bodies which doesn't allow us to increase the prices. So in our case, we also like literally struggled because our input materials were increasing, and suddenly but we cannot pass it on to the customers, I would say, because of the regulation. So in our case, we are not passing out it to the customer, but uh, uh, there are companies like they are working on the different product mix. Like what they generally do is that they change the type of medicine. So what they are doing is that they're like, for example, vitamin C. The vitamin C can also come as a drug, can also come as a food supplement. So definitely there were loss of revenue from our side. So what we did that we also created a food industry or a food supplement where we can at least recover the cost which we were making. Well, I'm sorry, somebody is like, yeah. So the drugs price cannot be increased. We also had a lot of pressures. We slowly started a different segment where we started food supplement, and we also tried to promote that. So we used that alternative. So this is from my side, actually. I think if there are any other from FMCG, they can answer it. And
Yeah,
add on.
Anirudh, maybe I'll stay with this question with you because you smiled while I was reading this question, so it makes me pertinent to stay with this question with you. So yeah, your views.
See here, as Ashish said, this is a matter of economics now, right? It's not about and if you're not a regulated industry, and even if you are regulated, right? If your margins start to shrink, then how do you make more money? You make more money by consolidation. You start acquiring these smaller companies, you start adding to your top line. So your margins are lesser, but your revenue base is larger. And here it's pure economics. If my input costs are higher, and if my customers are willing to pay for it, right? And that is where the market dynamics comes in. It's simple demand and supply. If my demand is outstripping my supply, guess what? I have the leverage to charge whatever I want because the customer is willing to pay for it. Now, if my other side happens where my supply is plenty and abundant and my demand doesn't exist, obviously to stimulate demand, you will have to work with price as a lever, right? So it depends on what is happening in today's environment. I think for a number of products, given the scarcity of input material and the fact that there's a genuine increase in that material cost, right? Because the demand far outstrips the supply. So people are able to charge, and you're able to charge, and you're also able to sell. And I think it's a pure matter of economics. So if somebody is willing to pay for it, well, great. I will add to my input costs and pass on those to my customer. Also try and make some money in between if I have to.
So Ashish, I'll come back to you with this question, especially with two perspectives. One from at your end, with the cost increasing, how do you find easier or difficult to pass it on to your customer in turn? And the second point of view would be that many people, in fact, most of the companies would have a touch point with intercontinental logistics at some point in time, or smaller or higher levels. So how do they react, and in terms of they communicate with this increasing cost from your side? Yeah.
Right. I think, Abhinav, somebody has to bear the cost. Let's be honest. You're right. So somebody has to get the brunt of it, because there is a cost out there which needs to be accounted in somebody's book, whether it be consumer or a seller. Somebody has to absorb that. Currently, I would say, fortunately, unfortunately, how the things are going, we are able to pass on to, even with the premiums, even across the supply chain. It's not just the shipping lines. If you see the agents, they are making the biggest of the buck, actually. And probably if you read about, say, Amel, for Musk, they have made one of the biggest profits even in a decade, what they made in this one of the few quarters. So it is, again, very different time. So let's keep that aside. But even if I go by one of the things which is very much in terms of sustainable, so when you refer to some of the industry leading ESG reports, they will say, if we go to this, whether I use to run my ship a fuel, which is a compliant because I'm going to California, just for an example, and California as an state tells me that you cannot come with a particular emission of a ship. So then I need to go by that fuel. And when I call to the port of California, I need to input that cost of fuel because I'm putting something extra in order to serve you. Now, the thing is, unless you're not startup, and I have no disrespect to them, because you have a deep pockets to burn, that is a different economics ballgame altogether. And that is where a different debate can go on. But if you go by a simple economics, you will have to pass on to the customer. And again, maybe your margins will be affected, how much you're ready to sacrifice your margin and have your top line grown. But then you have to somewhat or the other cater that part of it, because like I said, with the 2050, the goals of sustainability, companies have, I mean, you refer to some of the reports that very clearly says this will be the cost impact if I do this. So there is a cost to that. And then even a small example, I think it was Adani, if I'm not wrong, in Mumbai, they said, if you want to opt for sustainable energy, we can provide you. Whether it comes or not is again a question, but it will be a sustainable energy which will be delivered. So even as a consumer, people are becoming aware of it. So it depends that as a consumer or an end customer, are you willing to take that? And that is where the focus group internally, tries to sell that products to.
So in fact, the next question quite links up, and that's related to the energy crisis and the question whether the corporates are aligning with government to work out a solution. So I'll also maybe just add up one dimension to that question. How does the different companies at this point look at sustainability as an important factor that drives the way we operate? So maybe Ramkesh, we can start with you on this.
Very good questions, I will say, Abhinav, and this is a global challenge, and every global leader in every global forum, G20 or G7 or whatever it is, they are talking on green energy, clean energy, and alternate to the fossil fuel. Same big questions is coming to us in India also, where diesel and petrol price are running around $100 per liter. Government is also focusing and trying to give alternate fuel or say alternate energy. As far as telecom is concerned, just giving one example, till very recent time, telecom tower company, I will name say Indus, that is the third largest single consumer of diesel after Indian Railway and Indian Army. So equally, they are responsible for environmental pollution as well. They are going to say solar or wherever it is wind, the alternate energy is available, and maximizing electrifications of the towers so as they can reduce the cost as well, and they can go on alternate energy. And if we talk about energy, electricity, then electricity is also being generated by some another energetical inputs products, whether it is fossil fuel, coal, and now again is crisis for coal in India. Then people are running behind coal at global level. For that, there are also various options are being explored. Then different energy has been explored. Hydrogen is one solution which is coming out, which is feasible to India. Then lithium and maybe hydrogen energy, if that can be feasible or say affordable price come to the public, then it can be a come solution. It's a big question and interesting to see next 3-4 years how the future will shape it.
So Anirudh, maybe I'll come to you with the same question, but with just an additional point that how does your company or with the companies that you are aware of at this point in time take in sustainability as a priority, and how does that gel with the supply chain strategy?
Yeah, I think this is a great topic. I would like to put perspective to this topic by first saying that there is also a lot of geopolitics involved when it comes to these emission norms, when it comes to using clean energy. If you see the Paris Climate Accord, right, where everybody has signed and said we will be zero emissions or carbon neutral, I think that's what they call it, right? And here, the developing nations, right, India, China, they, because we are still developing, the owners of taking clean energy inputs and making ourselves competitive is a big burden. Okay, the West, fortunately or unfortunately, had the opportunity 50 years back, where they undertook significant investments in the industry, and they use all sorts of energy sources to make themselves rich. Okay, it is India's turn now. Okay, so as a developing economy, it is not that straightforward. We need to use whatever is available to make whatever we need at the least cost possible, and become a net exporter of goods, right? So that our currency strong becomes stronger, and we become, our GDP goes up, and it has huge ramifications in terms of economic development. That said, there is no denying that clean energy is the way to go forward. Every industry has to have a responsibility to making this planet a safer place, a better place for future generations to come, right? Mahindra, as a company which is at the forefront of India's development, right, has already defined this, and we will go and make it happen. All our cars in 2030 will all be mostly EV driven, because the policies also come out from the government. Electric vehicles are the norm, but then that requires a significant investment. Okay, that always comes at a cost. Somebody has to bear that cost. So you look at a Tesla today, right? Elon Musk is disrupting the industry a Tesla is a great car to drive, but it's also one of the most expensive cars to drive. Will a country like India be able to afford it? At some point, yes, there will be early adopters, and electric vehicles are the future because obviously there are benefits. It's a renewable source of energy. It requires huge investment and it's the right thing to do. But these things take time, okay? And in India, these things will happen over a period of time. And India has the right to do it at their own pace, okay? And I think keeping the politics out of it is the right thing to do. It has to be done. It comes at a cost and somebody has to pay for it. And eventually the customer will pay for it. As long as you have the money to pay for it, guess what? There's a market for it. So I think I've answered your question, Abhinav, in terms of what Mahindra wants to do, whether this is the right thing or not, and also the political influence and how policy shapes something like this.
Yeah, maybe we'll jump over to the next question and we'll come to you, Abhay, on this. So what are the barriers to competitiveness in supply chain for India? Or maybe I'll also put up a dimension of my own, that are there any regulatory or structural or behavioral political obstacles which doesn't let the supply chain be fully efficient as it can be in India?
So this question is to me, Abhinav?
Yeah. Abhay, to you.
So definitely, there is a regulatory angle to it. So there are barriers in supply chain. So there is one biggest point is the I only see regulatory as a biggest barrier. Otherwise, uh, uh, apart from this, I don't see anything which is happening. Or the geopolitical situation is also like interrupting a lot. Or creating a kind of a barrier in this. So apart from these two, what I've seen, there are no other factors.
Okay, fair enough. So anybody else in the team who would like to take this? Maybe Ashish?
I think infrastructure plays a biggest role in that way. I think whether we look at the ranking, which we were discussing, and the good part is we are starting from scratch on a lot of things, right? Whether if we look at the marine part of it, the coastal belt for us, we had, of course, a rich history in terms of why. I will be a bit aggressive on that, but why a Colombo could be demanding more than, say, a Mumbai port, in for the matter of asking for a container of a vessel coming at Colombo. Why our vessels, say SCI specifically, I can take a name, is that we have, like how you have a registry of a car in a state, you pay a different road tax. Same is the challenge when I want to register my ship with the flag, stay an Indian flag. So there is a lot of challenge there. And with the changes, because we also need to look at our own consumption, right? Forget about being dependent on others. Look at our own consumption as an Indian, look at our own sort of lives as say 10, 15 years ago, how it was to right now. So there is, of course, a upscale in terms of the our living standards, and in terms of infrastructure, the government is trying to do, and we should be able to, with the infrastructure developing, we learning more connected with a lot of companies actually coming back to India for whether it is a support function, back-end office, whatever you call it, then realizing that it can be more than what it was supposed to be a couple of decades back, maybe, because the potential, what in terms of delivery, what comes from the team here or the employees here is much more than what was anticipated probably a few years ago. So I'm quite positive about this. We will be seeing a multi-fold growth or change as we move forward.
Okay, so there's the next question. I'll read it up. Hyundai cope up with the semiconductor crisis somewhat. What are the changes needed to be done to cope up with it? So again, I would say before I put up this question, that too early to say that anybody has coped up completely, or we are still in the process. Most of the companies, I would say, in terms of coping up with it. So maybe with Anirudh and Ramkesh, you can take this question because quite closely related to this topic. So what are the changes that needs to be done to cope up with it?
So if I could start ahead on the Hyundai thing, right? So this is something which is out in the market, that the sales drop, which happened because of material shortages, was more pronounced at a Mahindra, a Maruti, and a Tata as compared to Hyundai, right? So while there is some element of truth to that, I think they got impacted at a later stage. So if you see the impact of supply chain disruption of maybe a Hyundai was at a later point in time, because they were able to anticipate that there is some issue in the supply chain much ahead of time. In the sense, there are enough indicators available. The moment your lead times start to spike, okay, for a particular commodity coming from a particular location, immediately your inventory planning model should be able to pick up the fact that, guess what, to do X amount of business, I was planning this Y amount of inventory. Now suddenly my algorithm is telling me that I need more inventory. It's an advanced signal, okay, and you can work on that. Whether it's going to stay or not, I think Hyundai was able to jump on board and was able to negotiate the capacity allocation to them a lot quicker than rest, because Hyundai also has a higher volume, okay, and Hyundai being a global conglomerate, they had the ability to leverage across a global supply chain a fixed capacity allocation where the supply constraint was coming. So the answer to that is they did get impacted, but maybe the quantum was lesser, but at a later point in time. Otherwise, there's no question that Hyundai also got a hit because of it. It's not just the domestic companies.
Yeah, Ramkesh, your views on this, maybe not specific to the company, but how the typical companies that you would be aware of would be dealing with this crisis. Was I audible, Ramkesh?
Yeah, I think Abhinav, his screen is still.
Still, no issues. No issues.
having-
Maybe there's a next question. I'll read it out. Can you please elaborate on digital tower concept on supply chain management? So is it maybe digital control tower? We can take up the
Actually,
digital control tower
tower.
maybe. Yeah. So I'll take it up maybe. So say for example, you have a concept like air traffic control for the aeroplanes incoming to a airport, and that's what the whole purpose of it. What it does is it controls the traffic, the flows, so that there are no delays, undue delays. It's efficient and it's safe as well. And that's the concept that I would maybe pull on towards the digital control tower in supply chain management. And what it would be comprising of would be the live information, very clear visibility, and very clear direction. Those would be the key points that would come to my mind for a digital control tower concept in supply chain management. Yeah, anything, Abhay, that you would like to add on? Anything that you have closely seen which is relating to this concept?
Yeah. So you're dot there, and so and also there are any supply chain have generally have got some constraint, or there is like there are certain internal constraint as well. So supply chain control tower takes a not only looks on the other on the external environment, but it also looks onto the internal environment as well, so that the product availability is like is there. And this control tower concept picked up a lot during the COVID, because there were a lot of issues with respect to demand were not very clear. The factories were not operating, and there were like day to day lot of discussion on the disruption which were happening in the logistic as well as the operation. The raw materials were not available, the trucks were not moving, there were like delivery with respect to the couriers, and other services were also being disrupted. So there was a single point of contact who was like looking at it like an air traffic controller. And I was just speaking to my control tower manager, I think 2 3 days back, and I told him, to me, his name is Hemant. To me, Hemant, you are a gym trainer. You are making this organization fit. From lean to fit, you need a gym trainer. And slowly, and then he was also very much worried about his future, that you have changed my designation to a control tower manager. What is my? I said, right now you are a gym trainer, but in times to come, you will be like a fund manager. So you will be so critical to go to like to make a company profitable and deliver all the goods and services. So this is something to watch, and this is something a new designation, a new thing which has cropped up in every I would say every industry, and and this is also making things like from linear to circular. So they are like the core, they are the core heart. They are slowly becoming the core heart of the organization, with a cross-functional team sitting across, talking day to day on each and every problem.
So Ashish, I do have to come to you with this question
Yeah,
for
Anirudh,
sure. Yeah, Ramkesh, you
I
want
agree with you and Anirudh both on this.
yeah.
Since this is a global crisis now, and the world, all entire nations are impacted. Yeah, impacted from it.
Yeah, I think there was some technical issue. Ashish, maybe we'll come back to you with the question on the digital control tower concept, especially in the shipping line. I do understand this would be quite prevalent.
It is, Abhinav, and I think again go back to the COVID times, where I was just referring to before, where the business was the secondary. It was about the people, actually, our crew, which was joining the ships, flying from a home country, joining to a remote country where even in India we not knew from one state to other state how do you fly, right? And what is the so during that time when we were arranging for making people travel, and then you know doing the quarantine first at India basically a week, and then they travel to goods is a separate part. I mean that comes later to, or the spares comes later to ensure how the business continuity is there. But first was about the people, because they are the core of to run that, and that sort of we had again a big screen in the crisis room, which we have that whatever was happening, because the regulations, as you know, and it's still actually is very very different. So if I had to fly to Dubai, I had to fly from here to London, maybe London to Doha, and then Doha to Dubai. So that was, if I had to join a ship in Dubai, I had to take that route, which probably is like circling half the globe. And you had to do it because you had no other options. And then after that, imagine if somebody gets a COVID in between. So all that effort which the team put it, forget about the cost, because you're already talking off the roof flight tickets to get the agents to escort them and all those formalities. So cost is it has taken a backseat. It was more about to get them safe and sound on board the ship, ensure that they are healthy. People on board the ship who was remember, right, a delivery guy coming to home even to deliver, how we used to stay away from them. So imagine a person coming to you who has flown across miles and now has joined the ship. You share the accommodation, you share everything, and so it was something which we were or still actually doing. And then we were continuously monitoring from this so-called tower that what is the regulation on the key ports where we go. So what is the regulation today? And then suddenly you plan for, because it is not something you can dispatch like a Swiggy or Zomato. You're planning to send across a person with the so much of restriction. So you plan for something today, and then suddenly off it changes, and then you have a transit. So I mean, still it is difficult, but I think we have seen the worst time in terms of making people reach home safely or back to the ships. And that concept did help us to put globally what is the regulation, how do we plan. I mean, tremendous amount of effort, I must say, from the team has gone, and I must say proudly that not a single reason or an instance where we had to sort of halt the ship because there was some issue related to this. So that was something, again, a blessing in disguise sort of a thing. It was again a thankless job, right, till the time as they say, shit hits the fan, they don't realize it. But now that everybody could see that, everybody could feel the pinch of the COVID, right? That as I said, that even to go down for a grocery was a big thing, and now here you're flying people around, and the space is of course a different thing. So it was a very learning curve for us as well, and in a very changing geopolitical Singapore allowing this 14 days of quarantine, and then suddenly changes because they have a different relation, say, with Indonesia. So you can't. I mean, it was a complete mayhem, but we did survive, and I think that sort of makes the team stronger. That come what may, you will be able to handle that.
Thank you. I think we are on time. So I would like to thank my co-panel members. They're quite great insights, and I do believe the students would have benefited a lot from this. So over to you, Colloquium team.
Thank you, sir. Now, coming to the end of the session, I request Shrikant to kindly present the vote of thanks.
Yes. So now we are coming to the end of the session. I, Shrikant, on behalf of the business cluster, Prakriya, the Operation Club, and I am Visakhapatnam's fraternity, extend a hearty vote of thanks to all the panel members, consisting Mr. Abhay Srivastava, Mr. Rakesh Jangra, Mr. Anirudh Srivastava, Mr. Ashish Tripathi, and special thanks to Mr. Abhinav Sinha for making this event a huge success. I would also like to thank the Professor Alok Kumar and admin coordinator of I am Visakhapatnam for joining us today for the event. The overall session has been very enriching and thought-provoking for the students. They got tons of takeaways to apply these in their lives. They have learned more about the supply chains and their future perspective and how they are affected in the COVID times and how they are reshaping and restructuring and all the items contributing to the supply chains. So as no program can become a successful with a single person, I extend my gratitude to the business cluster and student media cell for making this event successful. And last but not least, thanks to all the wonderful and patient audience. Now we would like to capture this event by taking screenshots. So I would request everyone to switch on their cameras. So yeah. Yes, so I think thank you very much and happy Diwali to everyone. Yes, now we can leave the session.
Thank you all.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Wish you all the best.
All the best.
Thank you.
Good luck, guys.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.